Hi there. Today I'm going to talk about how to use Socrative or Socrative. I've heard it pronounced both ways. But essentially what Socrative is it is a way to get quick feedback from your students about their understanding. So first of all, I'm going to talk about how to set it up from the teacher perspective. And then I'm also going to show you what a student would see if they were taking a quiz that you run through Socrative. All right, so first of all, this is Socrative.com. This is the website you're going to go to as a teacher to set up your quizzes. If you don't already have an account, make sure you go to sign up. And you're going to notice the only two things you need to register are an email address and a password. Because I already have an email address and a password, I'm going to go straight to teacher login and put in my credentials. All right, so this is the home screen you will see as a teacher. The first thing I'm going to show you how to do is change what's called your room number. This is the code that students will enter in order to access your quizzes. If you don't change it, it will default to a 5 or 6 digit code. But sometimes it's nice. You notice I changed mine to my last name. Just makes it easier for kids to log in. So the way you're going to do that is at the very bottom, click on My Profile, and there's an option to change your room number. So you can enter a new room number here. I'm going to keep mine the same because it's already Nelson. So that is changing your room number, and you'll see how that comes into play as a student in just a moment. All right, on to the assessments. There are two types of assessments that you can run in Socrative. One is called single question activities. These are activities you would run off the top of your head. So say, for example, you are teaching the students about something and you want to get some quick feedback on whether or not they're understanding it. You didn't plan this ahead of time necessarily, but you want to get some feedback so you know if you can move on or if you need to reteach. Those would be single question activities. On the other hand, there may be those times where you plan an assessment ahead of time, either a formative or summative quiz, but you have it planned ahead, you already have the questions written out. Those would be quiz-based activities. Okay, so I'm going to show you how both of those work in Socrative. Let's start with single question activities, those off-the-cuff type of questions you want to ask your students to see if they're understanding. All right, so there's three types. You can do a multiple choice question, a true-false question, or a short answer. Let's just do true-false. Now here's the theory behind single questions. The assumption is that because you didn't plan this ahead of time, you're going to ask the students the question verbally or write it on the board. So kids won't see the question, they'll just be able to answer true, false, multiple choice, or short answer. So let's say, for example, I'm teaching about days of the week, and I want to ask the question, true or false, today is Monday. I would write that on the board, I would ask the students, and then I would instruct them to go into Socrative on their iPads or their iTouches and answer the question. All right, so I'm going to show you what this looks like as a student. We've got my iPad here as a student. First of all, I'm going to open up Safari, and I'm going to go to Socrative.com, except instead of going into teacher login as a student, I'm going to go to student login. And you're going to notice there's a section where I can enter the room number. Remember, we changed that to my name, so as a student, I'm going to enter Nelson and join the room. Now, because as a teacher, I've already run this true-false question, now as a student, I can answer that directly. I can say, true, it is Monday, false, it's not Monday. Today happens to be Thursday, so I'm going to click false. And now let's see what happens as a teacher. On the teacher perspective, I'm going to get a feedback loop that shows me how many students answered correctly and how many answered incorrectly. Now with these single time questions, you don't find out who answered correctly or incorrectly, you just get a pulse for overall if the class is understanding or not. You could also run this as a poll. So maybe you're doing some kind of poll in the class. Do you want to learn about this or do this? Yes, no, whatever it is, it's a nice way to get some quick feedback. So that is single question activities. I'm going to go ahead and end that activity. All right, next up, what if I want to do a quiz that I've pre-prepared, summative or formative? The nice thing about quiz-based activities is we will get a report that shows the student, how many they answered incorrectly, how many they answered correctly, so we actually get to see the scores for the students themselves. Now, on to writing a quiz. To write a quiz, you're going to go into Manage Quizzes. And let's create a quiz. One thing to note, there's this section called Sharing. Sharing allows you to share a quiz with somebody else. So if you have a PLC partner and you want to do the same, you want to run a common assessment, this is a great way to do that. If you give them this, what's called an SOC number, they can import that quiz. It's a nice way to split up the work so you don't have to recreate the wheel. You can share quizzes among PLCs. The first thing it's going to ask is for a quiz name. I'll just call this example quiz. There are two types of questions you can ask in a quiz. You can do a multiple choice or a short answer. Multiple choice will correct for you. Obviously, short answer, you would go in and correct yourself. So let's do a multiple choice. Pretty simple. You're going to ask the question, what day is it? And give me my options. Right, let's select the correct answer. You can select multiple correct answers, so you could say A, B, C, A and B, C and D, so on and so on. For this, there's only one correct answer. You do have the option to give an explanation text. Right, if you want to give a little explanation for why that answer was correct. Let's go down to what it looks like if you do a short answer question. Right, and then you can also give an explanation text for that as well. For now, we'll leave that blank. Once I'm done with a quiz, I can add as many questions as I would like to. Let's go ahead and save that. Here's that SOC number that will be given to me so I can share that with a PLC partner if they want to use the same quiz. I'll go ahead and continue. And now, because I've saved that quiz, let's go back to main screen and let's run that quiz. To run that quiz, I'm going to go to Start Quiz. It's going to give me a drop-down menu of all the quizzes I've ever created. This one was the example quiz. And you have a couple of options before you run that quiz. You can do a student-paced quiz in which students move at their own pace. You can do a teacher-paced quiz in which you decide when it goes to the next question. So you can determine how quickly students move. And then there's a few things down along the bottom. You can randomize the answers so that every iPad has a different order. You can hide those little explanations if you decide for some reason you don't want to run them. And you can disable immediate right and wrong feedback. Socrative defaults to telling the student immediately whether or not they got the question correct. They cannot go back and correct it if they got it wrong. But it will tell them immediately whether or not they were correct. If you want to disable that, you can select it. I'm just going to keep it on so you can see what that looks like. All right, so let's do a student-paced quiz. And I've started to run the quiz, so let's take a look now at what that looks like for the student. The first question that always gets asked when you do a pre-prepared quiz is it asks that student to put their last name and their first name. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that. This makes life really nice because when you get a report, it comes in the form of a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet. When students enter their last name, comma, their first name, you can auto-sort them in alphabetical order. So if you were going to put this into your gradebook, this is a nice way to make it really organized. All right, as a student, I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. and it's going to immediately take me to that first question. What day is it? For purposes for you to see what this looks like, I'm going to get the answer wrong. I'm going to say it's Wednesday. And you'll notice it's immediately going to tell me that's the wrong answer. The correct answer was Thursday. And then my little explanation text shows up underneath it. It is November 29th. Let's go on to the next question where it's a short answer. Describe characteristics of November. For the sake of your time, I'm just going to put a little gibberish in there. And as a student, I can either finish the quiz, or you see the other option, let another student take the quiz. Let's say, for example, a student forgot their iPad that day, or it's not charged, or it's not working for whatever reason. In Socrative, I could take my iPad, I could pass it to another student, and they could also take the quiz immediately after. All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish the quiz. Let's take a look at the teacher section. It's going to show up that 1 out of 1 students has completed the quiz. I should point this out. When you are in teacher view, you can see how many students are in your room. You can see how many students are taking the quiz, how many have finished it. When everyone is done, as a teacher, I'll hit End Activity, and you have a couple options. I can get a report of the answers emailed to me. I can download the report. I can choose no report. What that does is it gives me no report at the moment, but I can go back into Socrative and I can download that at another time. Just so you can see what I will see, let's go ahead and download the report right now. It's going to show up in my downloads here. And you'll notice what I get is a spreadsheet. Now this is what I was talking about when you have last name, comma, first name. If I had multiple students here, I could sort by last name and get those in alphabetical order. The nice thing about Socrative too is when a student gets an answer incorrect, it shows up in red. If it were correct, it would show up in green. So if I had a question that, 90% of my students are in red, I would see that right away and know that's a section that I really need to reteach. Your short answers will just show up as text within the box. I get a number correct and also a total score, not including my short answer. Okay, so that's a nice way to get feedback really quickly. And again, because they're in alphabetical order, I can put those into the gradebook pretty quickly. Last thing I'm going to show you, and this is just a kind of nice to know type of thing, there are pre-created things called exit tickets. If you don't have time to put together a quiz, but you do want students to give you a little feedback at the end of an hour, you can go ahead and run the exit ticket. This exit ticket, I'll show you as a student. These questions are already created. You cannot alter them. You don't write them, but they're ready for you. So the first one is name again. So I will know who answered these questions. Next question is, how well did you understand today's material? Kids are obviously giving a little assessment of how well they understood what was going on. Next question, what did you learn today? As a student, I can write in a few things that I learned. And then final question is, as a teacher, I could put up a problem on the board, a question on the board, and then ask my students to solve it. Finish the exit ticket. Oh, I didn't enter a response, so it's going to tell me I need to. And again, as a teacher, when I end that activity, sorry, I'm just waiting for, I forgot to submit that as the student. But when I end that activity, just like last time, I can download a report. So I didn't even have to create that quiz, that was already ready for me. All right, that's a quick overview of Socrative. I hope you found this helpful, and this is a great tool for getting feedback from your students.